Welcome to the TechLink Health Podcast, an on-demand source for the top trending healthcare topics and insights. Delivered by key opinion and emerging leaders and as featured on the TechLink Health app. The healthcare industry is rapidly evolving, so our goal is to connect listeners to the most relevant insights, ranging from digital health to financial well-being to interesting side gigs. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.
I'm Govind Shantaram, and my co-host today is Dr. Rodney Saman. This episode focuses on vitality within the healthcare community and ways to balance purpose, happiness, and success through personal reflections. Our guest today is Andreea Vanacker, CEO of Sparks 5, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and author of the book Successonality, The 10 Secrets to Build a Success-Focused Personality. Her most recent book, Vitality, Life and Leadership Insights, explores the journey into human fulfillment and well-being. So, without further delay, please welcome Andreea Vanacker. Andreea, welcome to the inaugural podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It's great to have you here. I want to jump right in. With COVID, the public is increasingly gaining insight into healthcare, medicine, and the day-to-day activities of clinicians. Based on your experiences and previous roles in industry, what advice do you have for our healthcare workers, particularly as it relates to living a fulfilling, purpose-driven life?
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, that when we're looking at the world as it is today and the role of physicians, it is certainly amplified in terms of the contribution physicians are making into saving lives, which is absolutely phenomenal. At the same time, we need to realize that it is an incredible vocation that also comes with enormous responsibility. While the reward of saving lives must be tremendously exhilarating, if there's a misdiagnosis or any sort of error that may arise, it can actually have life-altering consequences on some patients. So when it comes down to happiness and leading a fulfilling life, the first thing I think that I'd like to mention is the fact that physicians have found their purpose is already a great accomplishment in itself. Some people struggle to even find their own purpose. So the fact that you found a vocation is a phenomenal step forward. But at the same time, while having found your vocation is really incredible, and being at service to others, we sometimes may forget about our own well-being, particularly because of the passion that comes into the lives of physicians. And that type of passion basically can take two forms. There's healthy passion and there's obsessive passion. Healthy passion is when we can do remarkable things during our working hours and then be able to enjoy other facets of our life, from our families, our hobbies, or in taking care of ourselves. But we also have on the other side, the obsessive passions with the careers that we've chosen to pursue. And obsessive passion is when we continue thinking about the work and the responsibilities that we have during our downtime and our lives become engulfed with only work to a point where we can no longer enjoy other aspects of our life. So this obsessive passion can actually lead to health issues, relationship issues, and can even lead to a point where the intensity becomes so strong that we begin making more errors and it becomes more and more challenging in terms of the impact that we have on other people's lives and our own as well. So that is really something that I think is essential to take into consideration during these very, very challenging times.
That's absolutely fantastic. Dr. Saman, what are your thoughts on, the advanced technologies that we have in the healthcare space? And these technologies are increasingly becoming more automated.
So it's a great question. Thanks for having me on. And Andreea, welcome. I think during COVID, everybody is talking about the acceleration of technology. I found initially when it started, I found Twitter as my source of information. There was a medical community of people tweeting about medical therapeutics and, different things going on, the positivity rates. And I think most doctors were looking for a community, and that's what we're trying to do with TechLink Health is provide a community for doctors to empower them and engage them in different aspects of healthcare, all aspects, so they don't feel alone. I wanted to get into this idea of loneliness amongst all healthcare professionals, but also amongst people in general, and wanted to get your take on that and also talk a little bit about this idea of this hero mentality where doctors can't mess up at all. And I think COVID exposed that because there was no real great treatment for doctors. They were really caught off guard by this.
Well, I fully agree with what you're saying, and it's certainly tremendously challenging times. I think everything that TechLink Health is doing in the space of basically building a community and fostering connection is fantastic. At the same time, when it comes to loneliness and what people have experienced over the last couple of months as a result of the isolation that has been demanded often by governments in order to contain the spread of the virus, the reality is that this loneliness, basically, that some of us are experiencing, particularly individuals that are really lonely within their apartments or houses and so on, is tremendously challenging for the human spirit. And there's actually research on this. The grand study by Harvard that was looking at individuals over a 75-year span were actually looking at the impact of loneliness and how actually it kills, literally, and that the effects could be as damaging as over drinking and over smoking. So I think that there's a need for us to really not forget that, yes, technology has a tremendous power in our lives to bring connections. And at the same time, I think we need to balance it with the human face-to-face connections. And neuroscience has proven this, that our brains actually react very, very differently when we are in communication with someone that is actually face-to-face versus via a virtual webinar, for example. The lives of a lot of people have been impacted, and it's been tremendously challenging. And I think when we're able to embrace possibly an evolution to our current reality, we must never forget the importance of the human face-to-face connections that are so important to our lives.
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head in saying that face-to-face interaction is incredibly important for us. And, within the clinician community itself, physician burnout and, unfortunately, suicide in the medical community are at staggeringly high rates, notwithstanding COVID. As a community, we're often deploying strategies optimized for career or profits, but not necessarily for happiness, or as Simon Sinek may call it, the infinite game. And you did briefly touch on this, but what are some other practical solutions we can bring to the industry to build that sense of community?
I think basically sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, and learning from each other is absolutely key to fostering different perspectives on how we can all grow out of the current situation and evolve stronger, actually. Every challenge brings also an opportunity for growth if we're really looking at such situations with a different perspective. But I think when we're talking about physician burnout and suicide, it's really, I would say, a societal problem that we have, not only in the physician world, but across a multitude of age groups and sectors. And it's quite sad. It's almost as if the expectations that we often impose ourselves are so high and increasing every single year that we push ourselves to the limits of what we're able to do, what our bodies and minds are able to do. And hence, this is where we have the development of mental illness that develops and other types of challenges that, yes, could unfortunately lead even to suicide. In fact, even most recent research was indicating that the highest rates of suicide and mental illness actually are among the millennials. So the very young generation are actually tremendously struggling with their lives and where they belong and how they can actually contribute in a positive way. So there's a lot to do in the specific area of mental wellness. I think at the same time, when we're talking about mental wellness, and this is also what I shared in the book Vitality and also through the Sparks 5 application that we've designed, is we've done a tremendous research on what are actually the factors that contribute to human well-being and flourishing. And there's a research actually by Gallup that went and looked around 150 countries, and whether you're in New York or Tokyo or Paris, they wanted to assess as to whether we actually have different needs or different realities that fuel our human well-being and human flourishing. And what they concluded actually is that there are no distinguishing factors. No matter where we are in the world, no matter what our age group is, we have the same needs. We basically, yes, have to take care of our careers, of our finances, of our relationships, of our health, and also our purpose in life. once we're able actually to get a good grasp, and I would not even use balance, but rather more integration of all these elements into our daily world, this is where we can achieve, I would say, a mental state that is healthier and that truly allows us to flourish and become more resilient to facing specific life challenges.
Yeah, very interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about that term, balance, because I know, Jeff Bezos from Amazon and Satya Nadella from Microsoft have said they don't like that term. They'd rather say it's harmony. There's no such thing as balance. They say that they want their employees to be happy at work and happy at home. And they're really pushing for happier home situations, which they feel will help their employees at work. It sounds like you would agree with that sort of sentiment.
Absolutely. And research has shown actually that what's very prevalent within any industry is what we call presentism. In other words, individuals are actually working and they should be focused on whatever they're doing. But the reality is that their mind is preoccupied with so many other facets of their lives, whether it's their relationship, their health, and all the other dimensions that I mentioned earlier. And consequently, it's costing organizations, it's costing societies, tremendously high amounts of money. And I think the biggest challenge, it's great to actually say, yes, let's give our employees a possibility to really cherish their families, spend more time in basically enjoying life. But some people struggle with that in itself. I think some people need support, need guidance, need to learn how to basically reach a state of harmony, as you call it. And I absolutely love that. I fully agree. Balance is not necessarily the right word. It's more, as I said, integration or harmony that we should be striving for, indeed.
And I love what you said about being present or presentism. And maybe, we haven't really talked about the elephant in the room, which is social media and its impact on mental health and distraction and keeping people away from being present. And I'm wondering your thoughts on the impact of social media and whether that's the contributing cause to this increase in loneliness and suicide and discontent.
Well, there's many studies that look at the impact of social media. There's even certain studies that have broken down specific applications and what actually does on our mental well-being. And it's fascinating because without naming any specific applications or social media sources, overall, the results indicated that it does have a negative impact on us, on our lives. And in fact, the more time we actually spend on these social media channels, building these relationships that we believe bring us some sort of happiness, the more unhappy we actually are. So this is actually what's very, very challenging. Certain individuals rely actually on building these social media relationships or these distant relationships and actually forget about the connectivities with people that are in close proximity to them. And we even see it actually among the younger generation. They're literally within 2 feet of each other and they're texting each other rather than actually conversing in a face-to-face conversation. So it's a huge societal problem that we have.
And it sounds like there's a dose response. In medicine, we use that term. In fact, even this recent convalescent plasma discussion was about a dose response. Higher amounts of plasma led to more benefit. And so you're saying the more social media you use, the worse the outcome. So it's a very interesting point you make.
Yes, that's a reality. And of course, you're seeing also when we're looking at technology as a whole, right? There's also phenomenal platforms and applications that have been very helpful in helping individuals deal with the current situation in terms of fueling basically a more rigorous exercise routine to basically achieving greater mindfulness or because of the practice of meditation and so on. So as I said, I think we really need to take a step back and just be self-aware as to how we leverage technologies or the possibilities and the options that exist in our world to fuel our well-being rather than deteriorate it.
So transitioning from causes of disharmony to potential solutions, and you briefly mentioned this, but you've had an active role in the arts and culture community. What are your thoughts on art therapy and the role the arts play in the pursuit of a sustainable health and sustainable well-being?
The World Health Organization actually did a study, and they've looked at more than 900 art therapy related studies around the world and noted that altogether, art really does have a positive impact on mental and physical health. And it's actually quite astonishing, to a point actually that after doing all this research on our side, we actually complemented the Sparks 5 mental well-being application with art therapy sessions that we began actually doing with the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. And whenever we're bringing executives within the museum, of course, now the circumstances are a bit more challenging, as you can imagine, the impact was absolutely extraordinary. So I'm a huge advocate for art therapy and have seen hands-on, as I said, with the clients that we've had the privilege to collaborate with on the positive impact that art therapy has.
I want to get in more into that discussion on art therapy, because I find that individuals and doctors who have hobbies, whether they play a musical instrument or have extracurricular activities besides medicine, tend to be more balanced than the ones that are all in on their careers. And I'm wondering if you can go into a little bit more about that right brain, left brain idea and what it is about art therapy that really makes a difference.
Basically, the essence of art therapy is really to almost disconnect yourself from your life, from where you are, and almost enter a world where you're now discovering the world of the artist that created that specific piece of art. And this is where it could be, as I said, there's a sense of curiosity, there's a sense of discovery, and there's also a sense of detachment from our own reality, because for that moment that we're just exploring this specific painting and really digging deep into the specific scenes and the emotions that arise, this is where it is just very, very powerful on us, because it's also a mindfulness exercise in itself.
Yeah, and I think Einstein once said, like, your imagination is the most important thing, more than intellect. And I have a young child, and he gets into this play therapy, and he's just sort of doing his own thing and sort of imagining a world on his own. And it seems very, therapeutic. And I think there's a lot in even child development where kids do much better with play than just like the idea of homework and this rigorous discipline studying that some institutions have. And, school, there's a whole debate on that. I'm wondering if you could talk more about this idea of conscious play. I had a plastic surgeon friend who noticed that some patients who were more playful with their disorder, and they did better if they had a lighter disposition than those who were more serious about that condition.
Well, the art of play is fascinating. And actually, it's so fascinating that we've integrated it within our Sparks 5 application, because what we came to realize through our research actually is that a lot of individuals, because they're so concentrated on their day-to-day responsibilities, they often forget to play. I've done sessions in the past where I was just simply asking people, okay, can you share your name? And can you share basically a fun fact about yourself or something fun that you've done recently? And it was quite shocking when I was hearing people, well, I haven't done something fun in a long while, or I can't even think about a fun fact about myself. This actually pushed us to explore further what is the impact of fun, of laughter, of even smiling at the neuroscience level, and how can we actually integrate it into our application. And it's so incredible, actually, just the smile on your face, just smiling. We're not talking about laughing, actually completely changes your brain to actually believe that you're actually happier. So within a very serious world that we may live in, we do sometimes forget to play. And hence the reason why, as I said, we've added this component. We're actually giving our users on a weekly basis ideas of how they can use regular things they have anywhere in their office or in their house to actually bring more joy and more laughter into the world. And actually what we've done, we've even explored yoga therapy, yoga laughter. As you know, yoga laughter has also been shown to also increase your mood, your positive spirit. And it's really fascinating how certain, if you wish, maybe non-conventional ways of achieving happiness are now being used more and more by certain individuals to really bring a more positive energy to their lives.
I love that. And even like the idea behind comedy. I know some doctors have done stand-up comedy and really benefited from that. And, the idea behind the seriousness of this world, and again, maybe that's the social media. Steven Pinker said it best. I think we probably live in the most peaceful, benign world compared to 100 or even 1,000 years ago. But I think because of the information overload that we have, that people have this idea that everything is falling apart. And I think that's just it just goes back to the idea of your mindset.
Absolutely. And I love what you're saying. And the mindset and how we look at our world is so essential here. And in fact, at the brain level, we are pre-programmed as human beings for survival. You can almost look at the brain as being like Velcro for negativity and Teflon for positivity. I believe it was Rick Hansen who actually said this. It is so right, because we're always basically watching as to whether there's anything that could threaten our survival. And consequently, that's why we are often more inclined to see the negative in our world. And the reality is that, yes, negative events also at an emotional level, at a neuroscience level, also stick to us much, much more than positive events. So we really have to make a conscious effort in integrating fun things into our lives to be able to live with more joy. It's really, as I said, it's a practice, but I think it can truly transform your life.
I want to probe a little bit more into that, especially at the sort of executive and management level. When you bring folks into Sparks 5, how are you inculcating that culture that is not as litigious? It can spark laughter and joy in the workplace. How are you teaching your clients how to integrate that type of philosophy into their workspace?
So what we do is that we actually have an onboarding session with all the users within a company that have chosen to use our application. And for us, this is where we have the opportunity to explain the science behind what we designed. And we ultimately integrate, or explain rather, how they can integrate into their daily lives the application in an optimal way. And the way we've designed it is really to progress and to strive and to become more resilient through micro-learning. And we've integrated videos and text that basically take about a minute for you to look at. And then we give you a challenge for the day. And the reason we do that, it's really because psychologists have analyzed this, and our capacity to retain information actually decreases with time. And in fact, if we learn something today, but we do not put it into practice, whether it's learning golf or learning tennis or anything else, if we do not actually take that tennis racket in our hand, we are actually going to be forgetting how to play within about a week. So ultimately, what we try to reinforce, and the messages that we convey to our users, is that it's through this continuous practice that really personal evolution can take place. And hence the reason when we do these onboarding sessions, we really explain, as I said, all the neuroscience and the psychology behind what we do, and how by implementing these 5-minute vitality breaks from Monday to Friday, it can truly transform people's lives. And the other element, it's not just at basically how it transforms cultures and allows organizations to grow in a new way, but it also signals to the employees a message that basically we care about you. We care about you as a human being. We care about you and your life outside of this organization. And I think when we do these sessions that allow us to, as I said, to launch the application, it really changes the mindset, and individuals that really want to improve their lives and have a desire for personal evolution truly embrace it. And we see phenomenal results within teams and companies that we've deployed the application far beyond what we originally anticipated.
So I wanted to get into one of your books, The 10 Steps to Vitality. And we don't have to go into all 10 steps, but can you name a couple of things that jump at you that you'd want the listeners to really understand and to put into practice?
So, in fact, Vitality, the book, is based on the 5 pillars of human well-being that links all the research that we've done and also ties into some of the research from Gallup. One of the key pillars is really about finding your purpose and realizing that everything almost stems from that. In other words, if you do not have a clear purpose as to what you're aspiring to do, how you're going to be leveraging your strengths and contributing to this world, it may hinder your ability to make other decisions that may relate to your career, that may relate to your relationships and other areas. Finding your purpose is really absolutely essential to becoming more grounded into what is the actual impact that you want to have on this world that can allow you to lead a more fulfilling life.
I saw this recent article in the New Yorker about this idea of boredom. And I think it was very, very timely article given what's going on with COVID and people have all this time on their hands and how the human brain can't tolerate that. And I've talked to some friends of mine who have been in, employed positions in hospitals for years and are absolutely bored out of their minds and in private practice and have, varies for many reasons, but because I do a lot of different things. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the idea of boredom and how that relates to purpose.
Sure, absolutely. And I think what I'd love to touch upon actually is the concept of flow. Flow is a concept that has been designed by a Hungarian psychologist by the name of Csikszentmihalyi, and he started doing a lot of research around peak performance and how people get into flow to actually reach phenomenal performance. And he's actually established what leads to boredom. And when you're looking at a chart that he's actually created where on one side you have basically the skill levels of the individual and on the other you basically have the challenges, what he mentioned is that when you get into boredom is because the challenges that you're actually engaged in are far below your actual capability. The door to flow actually is when you're able to have a match of your skills with the challenges that you're pursuing. But the reality is that as you're practicing a specific skill, you're going to get better. So over time, your skill competency on the XY axis is going to grow. So at the end of the day, unless you actually increase the challenge, you're going to fall in a state of boredom. And that's really what I think we need to always look out for ourselves and even for the teams that may be working for us.
I love the idea of flow. I just heard of this idea again, watching a show on Netflix about the origins of the Atari games, including Space Galaxy or Space Invaders and Pac-Man, and the idea behind playing video games. And I know there's a lot of books out there about actually the benefits of playing video games and that challenge that comes with it. And apparently they used a lot of that theory of flow in developing those video games.
Oh, yes. It's incredible.
It's very interesting.
Indeed.
Well, Andreea, we want to be respectful of your time. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing from you. Before we wrap up, what insight or insights do you have for those working in the healthcare space? Any final takeaways?
Any final thoughts? My recommendations would really be centered around I think what we touched upon earlier that relate to how can you find an optimal harmony in your life that allows you to enjoy the path that you've chosen, your vocation in terms of saving lives while cherishing the joys of life as well. I think that's really the key takeaways and recommendations that I would have. And it's really about cherishing every moment, having no regrets, and remembering that as we take care of others, we also need to take care of ourselves so we can actually become even a greater contributor in the future.
Great. Andreea, how can viewers get a hold of you or learn more about your programs?
Yes, with pleasure. They can go on sparks5.com. It's Spark and then X and then the number 5.com. And they can basically have access to more information on what we do there, or they can contact me via LinkedIn with pleasure.
Excellent.
Great.
And we'll be sure to link in the show notes to all the ways they can contact you and the work you're doing at Sparks 5. And with that, we'll wrap the episode up there. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode. TechLink Health is a healthcare advisory platform for consumers and organizations to stay informed with the latest insights while connecting with healthcare experts for telehealth, e-consults, and consulting services. For more details, visit www.techlink.health.